And then Juliet, if you can do me a favor and just keep an eye on in the waiting room and admit folks, just in case I'll miss on that one. But I want to thank it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Juliet. Okay. So I'm going to get started. I'll give you a little bit of background on how this webinar came to be, and how we're approaching this as part of the webinar moving forward. But I'll give you a little bit of. We'll start out. It's a little bit of a storytelling webinar today, but before we get into the storytelling, I'd like to do land acknowledgements. I'm lucky enough to be joining you from the traditional territories of the Erie, the Neutral, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas, also known as Hamilton. And this land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was the agreement made between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. What when I was doing a little bit of research about the Dish with One Spoon, because I was like, why is it called that? It's mentioned by the Indigenous people that it was the treaty that kind of identified the responsibilities that they all shared relating to caring for the lands around the Great Lakes. And one of the things that I really thought was quite cool is that the dish represents the land that is to be shared peacefully, and the spoon represents the individuals living and using the resources of the land. But in addition, the spoon also represents something that can't be used as a weapon. It identifies the codependencies amongst all the people and how the spoon is what nourishes them, but can't be used as a weapon. And I thought that was a really lovely thought in terms of the history and the meaning behind the Dish with One Spoon. And just as well, I'm just going to take us on a little bit of a tour, and I'll give a little bit of background on this one. In addition to the land acknowledgements, I use it as a personal responsibility to try and kind of follow through on a land acknowledgements to educate myself in terms of Indigenous knowledge, history, issues. And one of the ones that I've been flogging it endlessly, and I apologize. It's just that I really love the book, and it's Robin Wall Kimmerer, Braiding Sweetgrass. And I have to say, it's one of the best books I've read in a long time. One, it's just beautifully written and very poetic, but also it's one of the first books that I've really kind of helped me wrap my head around how Indigenous knowledge and Western knowledge together can be so much more powerful than any of those in isolation can be. And I was always trying to kind of wonder, how do you bring Indigenous knowledge into Western science rules that we all have to follow? And I think one of the things that really her book really kind of helped me kind of wrap my thick brain around is the fact that it helps to the Indigenous knowledge and the Indigenous way of thinking is it's all very much about connections. And in one of the things that I think really comes through on that one is that those connections force you to think in a systems thinking perspective or a way, which in our Western society, we have kind of think in silos. We think in specialization. So, we think in becoming a specialist in one key area is the way to go. And it has been the case for how science has progressed in Western society, but it also means that there's a gap in the way we look at things, and we miss the connections, and we miss the interconnections and the codependencies and the systems thinking that Indigenous knowledge just holds as to its core. So as part of that, I am just going to take this. I'm going to share it here. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to go through we have to go through the commercials. Sorry. Oh, and it's Ambridge one too. Take it.
The energy assessment looks for air leaks in the home, as well as all the insulation levels. If there's one thing that I would tell people about...
Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. This is going to a wrong webinar. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've messed up already. Sorry.
Dene Elder Paul Desane said,
Sorry. I am going to go back to here. And I brought the wrong one. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to use it for another one. I apologize. My error. I will be sharing finding the right one, putting it into the thing. And, oh, actually, let me just see. Sorry, give me 1 second. All right, got it. Sorry about that.
How we see the world determines how we act. The Western philosopher Hobbes saw humans as engaged in a war with each other over resources, making our lives solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. This view of the individual, fearful, working alone, in competition with others, now dominates Western philosophical tradition. In indigenous philosophy, we are all related as individuals, as part of a kinship-based community, and as part of nature, in balance with the whole. In most Western thought, society is seen as an aggregate of self-interested individuals, connected by competition with each other over limited resources, creating fear, insecurity, hopelessness, a scarcity of spirit. Indigenous societies see prosperity in nature. Resources are abundant, shared. Collaboration fosters environmental stewardship and balance with nature. In the Western worldview, nature is feared, its value based on hierarchy. Everything on Earth ranked, mineral, plant, animal, with humans at the top, dominating everything below. In the indigenous worldview, humans are an equal part of a vibrant, interconnected whole. Two worldviews, two very different economic systems. The dominant Western market economy, like its worldview, driven by an assumption of scarce resources, intensive centralized production, individuals with insatiable appetites, accumulating. By this standard, the market economy works. 40% of the Earth's resources owned by just 1% of the population. The combined wealth of the 3 richest individuals in the world exceeds the GDP of the poorest 47 countries. The world contains only 497 multi-billionaires, while half of its population survives on less than $2.50 a day. The indigenous economy, like its worldview, interdependent, decentralized production, extensive use of resources, promoting responsible resource management, abundance, kinship, a belief in enoughness, encourages sharing and cooperation. In the Arctic, after a successful whale hunt, Inuit kinship and reciprocal obligations ensure everyone's needs are met, fairly and equitably. Prerequisites for sustainability, the health of the economy measured by the health of the whole. Health in the market economy, measured by gross domestic product. The more we produce, consume, the better the economy. Construction of buildings, manufacturing, transportation, all considered positive production, but so is production of weapons, cigarettes. While investments like healthcare, education are considered costs, negative economic productivity. And the impact on GDP of the physical and emotional costs of warfare, or the pollution that threatens 1/3 of the world's animal species, irrelevant externalities outside the system, not even making it onto the balance sheet. An unsustainable system where scarcity of resources is a self-fulfilling prophecy. There is an alternative. Indigenous peoples' territory spans 24% of the Earth's land surface, but is home to 80% of its total biodiversity. This is not a coincidence. In indigenous cultures, balance and harmony aren't romantic notions, but millennia-old design fundamentals. Nature essential for survival, production and protection together. Economic success sustainable, creating well-being for all. First Peoples funds indigenous models and traditional practices that offer insights to creating an alternative economy which promotes balance with nature and communal harmony.
So thank you very much, everybody, for indulging me on that. I am going to throw the link in the chat.
With MailChimp's customer
Oops, sorry. I'm going to turn that.
Journey Builder.
There we go. Turn that off. Turn it into the chat so that I can, why is it not, oh, there we are. And throw that into the chat. And thank you very much for indulging me in that one. I really quite enjoy hunting down videos, and it helps me feel not so superficial when I'm doing my land acknowledgements, which is always kind of makes me a little on that one. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So I did want to kind of highlight, I will give you a little bit of background on the topic for this webinar and how it came to be, and also a little bit of the goal associated with this. So I've been hearing from a number of the municipal staff people who are advancing retrofit programs in their community, and putting a lot of thought and effort into this to kind of really understand how do we go from where we are right now, even once we get a program in market, to the scale up that is required in order to, oh, okay, sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay, the video is going in the background. Let's see, I don't see it. Okay. Sorry, did I get rid of it? Okay, let me know if I got rid of it. And I will go back to here, sorry, I'm working on it. All right, and then as part of it, when I'm gonna, to one of the past, just to how do we go from the point of actually just getting a program in market, which is where we're focusing at this present point, to actually understanding how do we get to scale up and the numbers of retrofits that we need to achieve our GHG reduction targets. And I know that it can be overwhelming when you think about that. There have been many, many times where I was like, I will never do it. How are we going to go to from where we are now to where we need to be? And it causes a bit of anxiety and panic. So as part of the work that's taken place across a number of different networks, I thought, why not try and pull it all together to give you a little bit of insight and something that's helped to alleviate some of my anxiety in terms of how we go from where we are right now, which is at the very early stages, to where we need to go to actually enabling retrofits to be the climate champions that we need them to be. And so these are some of the puzzle pieces that are part of making the scale up and the opportunity a reality. And I really want to give a big shout out to the Residential Energy Efficiency Retrofit Training Network as part of this, because a lot of this thinking came from brainstorming sessions as part of that network. And I really wanted to share it with some of the municipal folks on this, because I found it's helped me keep my anxiety at bay and also give me an idea of the pathway that we need to go. But we can only take on so much at one point in time, but it's good to know the pathway that we're trying to achieve. So we'll be going through all of these different puzzle pieces and digging into them a little bit. So you might be thinking, why would I bother with a retrofit program? Way too much work. We don't get the uptake that we need. Why would I be doing? Why would I put myself through this challenging endeavor? Really, when it comes down to it, there is no way. Like every single municipality in their climate action plans has a home energy efficient or building energy efficiency retrofit program on their to-do list. But the sheer challenges of advancing this is something that really is very daunting and has greatly limited the implementation of these programs into residential markets thus far. But in addition to just being a climate change champion, honestly, a retrofit program and being able to do this at scale up is one hell of an economic development strategy and a job creation strategy. And I think that's to me, one of the most beautiful things about advancing a retrofit ecosystem. Not only will it help retrofits be the climate champions we need them to be, but it also be helping to address local economic development of jobs that can't be outsourced. They have to really come from the local community, keeping energy dollars local, because we know that most of our money that we spend on energy is leaving our communities, whereas the retrofit efforts would be things that support the economic development, because they're going to be likely locally bought. Can't be buying this stuff on Amazon or anything, just as yet anyway. So there's a lot of local economic development opportunities. In addition, the energy efficiency jobs present a really nice mix between helping to get people into the market. So retraining is a real opportunity in this sector. And there's a nice balance between higher pay jobs as well. And it's a huge economic potential in Ontario, not just only on economic development and local spending, but also on job creation, which is, to me, the holy grail that we are all trying to advance as part of that. And we will go a little bit more into the opportunity to really improve the diversity in the retrofit ecosystem. So while they are a pain, and I'm not denying that, they have a lot of value that they can provide. So I don't know about you guys, but I know there's been many a time that I have almost like pretty much panicked. And I have a little joke that I like to share. And when my kids were younger, I was always trying to encourage them like to kind of like, don't panic, you know, like if you panic, your brain doesn't work and you can get hurt and everything like that. And I remember at one point in time when I was with the kids and we were all kind of going through a difficult time. And I was like, what did I say about panicking? And my son, who was like 6 at the time, just turned to me, he's like, if you panic, you die. And it became a standing joke in our family that I was like, what happens if you panic? And then everybody would go, you die. But it is true, it does feel like that. And your body responds in that way. So one of the things about it is like, don't panic. I know it's daunting, but it's a matter of kind of, I think it's helpful when you can see the pathway ahead of you. And our present, like one of the key things, and I think that just helps me alleviate or keep the anxiety at bay. So I did want to kind of highlight most retrofits that have been into market have been quite instrumental. We'd be lucky to get 30% reductions in a home, but a lot of the kind of programs thus far have really kind of gotten from the 10, 15, 20%, and we really need to scale that up. It can no longer have our retrofits being instrumental in the way they have been in the past. In addition, most building energy retrofits are one-offs, so there's a lot of costs associated with one-offs, which are pretty much customized retrofits. And there is opportunity, and that part of building that ecosystem is moving away from one-offs. But we also have to recognize that contractors are not at present salespeople for the energy efficiency measures and the deep reductions we need to move towards. In addition, our present retrofit market is not fit for scale up. So we really have to build the foundation over the first, in my opinion, first 5 years of these programs to build a really strong foundation that can handle the pressure that scale up will bring. So I did want to kind of highlight, we all know that the residential sector has been underserved via traditional utility programs in comparison to other sectors. Having now learned a little bit more about the sheer challenges of the residential sector, I totally understand why those areas were not the priority that they really need to be, but they're not the easiest markets to serve. I did want to highlight, and again, there's greener homes coming into the market. That is really fantastic. There is home energy efficiency, home efficiency rebates that Enbridges has in market. There is a proposed CMHC program that has been promised to us, and it would be bringing financing for the first time into these programs, which is fantastic. It is promising zero interest. We will go into a little bit about that it's not really zero interest. Someone's paying that interest. And it would be really, there's a real value to having those loans secured to a property rather than an individual, because that will reduce the interest rate associated with that loan. And while it might be zero interest to the customer, we know as a part of total program costs, we are, like all of us, are paying for those interest on those loans. So anything we can do to reduce the interest is going to help all of the program and help all of the cost associated with this. I think that's one of the key things that I think is the real value that the FCMCEF program provides. There are still huge amounts of gaps in these programs that are in market, or even the programs that are going or should be going into market as they've been promised. There are still huge gaps that provide some real value. Now, before I just go into anything here, I'd like to just kind of give folks a little idea, like, what does a net zero emission home do? Like, what does it look like? What's it different? And it really did kind of highlight, because I find sometimes it's just helpful to see all the different changes or different things that we need to be doing to these residential properties to enable them to go towards net zero. And we won't probably get there in one go. I don't think that there's going to be a huge segment of the population who wants to go there all at once. But really what we need to do is help homeowners develop their roadmap for how they go from where they are right now to where they need to where that net zero target that we're all aiming for. In addition, I just wanted to highlight some of the building envelope, because while this number kind of just says higher performance envelope, it doesn't actually speak to what the hell is this better performing envelope. So I wanted to give a little bit more insights on that one. So you may be wondering, with the programs coming into market, what is the value of having a municipal program? And there's no doubt, I know it's very, very daunting. But one of the key things that we have to learn in this market, there's a couple of key questions that we need to really learn. Some of those key questions are, what factors influence customer uptake? What makes for the best customer experience possible? And what factors drive deeper reductions? And we have information from other people's programs that we can use, but it doesn't kind of speak to our local market. Now, chances are our local market won't be all that different from other markets, but I think one of the things that has been a little bit of a silver lining, and I know that when, we've always been pitching, we wanted a provincial-wide energy efficiency retrofit financing program in market. It's that little rectangle on the screen. I can show that it's actually a closed caption, so we're just doing it to, you can pull it and you should be able to move it. So if it's distracting for you, it's just showing the captions just for helping with the audio. If there's any kind of aspects of learning on this one, it really is, we do need to kind of collect that local information. And when Green On existed, we really were very, very hopeful that Green On was going to take on the responsibility of delivering a home energy efficiency retrofit financing program. And and I think they were really going to do that. But when Green On became Green Off, we actually we licked our wounds for a period of time and sat there and kind of thought, okay, what now? And one of the good things that I kind of think came out of the FCMCEF announcement is that it does allow us creativity and greater ability to be customer oriented, because while it would have been efficient to have a province-wide program, we also know that provincial, actually any government programs are set up to meet the needs of the program and the quantification and the government needs that are there. They're not necessarily always customer oriented in a way that these programs could be if we were creative about how we design them. So I think it does allow us to try different approaches in different communities to figure out how do we actually use real world data to help inform some of these key questions that we need to ask. So in one of the key, I did want to highlight, okay, as one of the kind of key things I did want to highlight, one of the biggest gaps in the retrofit market at present is the lack of customer handholding and support. If you can imagine just undertaking an energy, just a normal renovation, that is something that is already kind of, you're taking on a part-time job to manage all that. In addition, you're dealing with contractors who probably know how to put hardwood flooring and how to put a countertop in, but energy efficiency skill sets vary enormously across the contractor world, and the customers need help and handholding, not just to navigate the complicated world of going through an energy efficiency retrofit. What measures make sense for my home? What's the right price for it? Am I getting gouged by the quotes? Is this identifying, how do I schedule this? What's the sequence I would need to do? But all of this work, the customers need handholding and support to help that. Now, in terms of these programs, I just wanted to kind of highlight that municipalities are not on their own. There is a lot of third-party supports that can help you. First of all, I would really encourage reaching out to community partners that are there to support you. They are really instrumental in helping you advance a retrofit program. They have a captive audience that they're probably most likely to be your leading customer base. But in addition, they are really creative in ways that they reach out to the community, and it probably would cost them a lot less to reach out to engage their community than it would cost you. If you don't have any of those community supports, there's all their other third-party models that can deliver programs for municipalities, and I'm happy to chat with you about what things make sense in your community. We're advancing in one just to kind of lead, but we're not kind of vested in, and we don't actually even care which model gets used. All we really care about is getting programs into market. And really, these programs in your local community have a huge impact in helping to build that retrofit ecosystem. Because one of the key challenges is that while these other programs really help as well, absolutely they help, they don't actually have they kind of like, that they pull the kind of like the market needs to catch up to them, and they don't actually get the market ready before they go out into these things. So one of the key things to help on this one is kind of that push-pull that can take place between these bigger programs and the community programs to help build the market for the retrofit ecosystem. I did want to highlight, community partners, any kind of community organizations that are working with you in terms of their partners, that they had to have access to the communities. You could actually thinking about other ones. I would really start with your community partners. I know that, let's say, for example, Waterloo is working across all of their municipalities, along with Waterloo Region Community Energy. It's looking at REAP as well. Now, not all communities have those community assets in their community, and I totally understand that, and I know it puts you at a significant disadvantage. And that's where another third-party model, like one of the examples that, CAP and AMO are working together to advance a third-party model, especially for those communities who want to advance these retrofit programs but do not have local assets, who can help them deliver these programs in market. And if you want any more information on that, please just give me a shout. I'm happy to chat more about it. We've had a lot of discussions across various different networks on a turnkey model. And it is absolutely where we need to go. I am not knocking that. It is absolutely where we need to go. But in one of the key challenges, you got this challenge of supply and demand issues that can bankrupt you if you don't time it right. And I think that's one of the key areas, is that, the ones that we're kind of getting into market right now still require, it's getting all of the municipal programs that I know about at present have the energy concierge offering in their community program, because it's recognized as a huge gap. But one of the key areas is, how do you move away from one-offs? How do you simplify this so that the customer can just say yes to wanting the energy efficiency retrofit program, but they don't have to find all the contractors, they don't have to schedule the contractors, they don't have to do any of that kind of overall part-time job that's required in any efficiency retrofit. And there's someone else who can play that general contractor role and manage these programs for them. So all they have to say is yes to the program, and then there's a third party who serves as that general contractor for delivering on the measures that that customer wants in their home. One of the challenges with this is that in order for you to offer that general contracting service to your customer base, you pretty much have to have all of your contractors working for you full time. Because I'm not sure if you've done recently a net renovation, but scheduling of contractors, if they're not just doing your job, is, I can assure you, a really significant challenge. Therefore, you would need to have these contractors working for you and your customer base full time so that you can really manage the scheduling of the sequence of the measures that need to take place. And you could kind of imagine that if they're not just working for you and they're working as you're fitting your jobs into their overall schedule, you can see how scheduling would get easily messed up. In addition, you can also see how what normally should be a 1 week job turns into a 2 or 3 week job, and then everybody gets upset about that. So I really see this as an opportunity. We have to move in that direction, and we just need to balance out the supply and demand so that maybe we can kind of bring a bunch of clients who want to do a retrofit but do not want to take on the part-time job of managing their retrofit into a wait list, so that then when there's enough on that wait list, it builds the solid base to deliver these measures to this customers. Because if you have all those contractors working for you full time, and then what's going to happen is that you're going to be hemorrhaging money because you're not going to have enough work for them right at the beginning. So it's a matter of balancing that supply and demand that's really critical, that can really hurt the financial viability of turnkey models if the demand is not there on an ongoing basis. So that's where the challenge comes. Oh, thank you, Eric. Really appreciate you putting all of those community partners in the mix. And there was a question I saw in the chat about, is there a resource for home energy retrofit contractors? No, there isn't, and that's one of the gaps in the market. We will speak to the decentralization of energy efficient or contractors and the building science expertise. So I did want to kind of highlight probably one of the first gaps we're noticing as part of the Greener Homes program is the bottleneck that's created by requiring pre and post audits. And there's nothing wrong with requiring pre and post audits, especially if the homeowner is making any building envelope improvements. Maybe it's not. We can get into a debate. Maybe it's probably not necessary if you're just doing a mechanical system switch out, like changing your air conditioner to an air source heat pump. We could have an argument in terms of that. Is it really needed to do the pre and post audit if that's all you're doing? Probably not, but we are still in the early days of these energy efficiency retrofits, and we are trying to get building envelope improvements as part of the measures getting uptake too. So we really do want to kind of have that pre and post audit, and it is a bottleneck in the system at present. It's something that's going to have to be improved. They are working on it, and NRCan. And I also wanted to kind of highlight KC, which is the Canadian Association of Community Energy Advisors. I can't remember, I always get the acronym mixed up, but they're going to be joining us for a future upcoming webinar, just kind of giving us a little bit better understanding of what are the skill sets that energy advisors have, what do they need to be, are they tested on, and what do they have been gaining experience in, how they're going into market, how they're thinking about streamlining audits, how do you find the best balance between streamlining audits and quality assurance, which I can assure you is very, very important, especially at these early stages of these programs, because of the fact that we don't have enough contractors who really have the building science expertise. So we really want to have that quality assurance. In addition, wanted to kind of figure out, how do you find the best balance, especially in more northern, remote communities where there might be even less energy advisors and travel time is a significant barrier. And how do you manage that? And I think that there's kind of, there's going to be improvements in terms of combo audits that you would have virtual as well as someone in-house, and just trying to use the energy advisor's time as efficiently as possible. So there is a lot of work taking place, and Casey will be coming to an upcoming webinar to give a little bit of insight on how they're working with NRCan to address this bottleneck, and also how the energy advisors, what their knowledge base are, and what they're going to be doing, what they do with the homeowner, and what they could be doing with the homeowner. So I did want to highlight embodied carbon. One of the highlights on this one, we've been trying to advance embodied carbon, let's say bringing it into green development standards. But really, it's kind of challenging to expect others to bring embodied carbon when the information on what is the embodied carbon of products, actually, like, how do you find this information and how do you streamline it? So I wanted to really give a big shout out to some folks in terms of the Builders for Climate Action that's building the BEAM estimator. It's still in development, but it is taking a fair amount. It's going to be helping, and mostly low rise, I will admit, bringing low rise carbon embodied carbon calculations into development decisions. And the Achieving Real Net Zero Homes link, I will put in the report. All of these PDFs of this, all the PDFs of this presentation will be shared after the webinar. And I also wanted to let you guys know as well, I know TAF is working with Ryan Zizzo and Manifest to undertake embodied carbon supports for the MERB sector. So that's coming soon. So that is kind of helping to build that. In really, when it comes down to it, one of the key things that I wanted to highlight is in terms of, I think there's a huge opportunity for embodied carbon billings, the products that are, I'm calling embodied carbon billings, to be addressed in these retrofit programs by kind of eligible products, customer concierge, and contractor knowledge opportunities. So it really presents a really good opportunity for bringing the embodied carbon into decision making. So I did want to highlight contractors as low carbon building science partners and allies. Contractors are a critical sales force for these retrofit programs, and how they make the business model work for them is something that we really need to understand better. I will admit I don't understand it just as yet. There does seem to be some critical barriers we're facing in how, especially the mechanical system contractors, work and how their business model works that can undermine our longer term goals related to building envelope and fuel switching. So there's a significant amount of neat work that needs to be done in this one to better enable contractors to be the climate change champions that they really can be. But there are some significant challenges that we're going to have to face in terms of understanding their business model and helping to address that business model. Because if it doesn't work for their business model and their own, then we're going to have a challenge getting them engaged and to be the powerful sales force for these programs that can that we need them to be. And that local outreach is critical for this, because while yes, these programs will, the national programs will help to advance this market as a whole, you really want to try and see if you can do the best by your community to make it so that your community is able to engage in this really important sector and achieve all the other policy, the GHGs, as well as the other policy goals that these programs can achieve. So there's absolutely no doubt about it in my mind. Under our present contractor and renovator supply chain, we cannot grow the retrofit ecosystem. Right now, even with the limited amount of retrofits taking place, but a lot, there's still a fair amount of home improvements taking place. The ability for the energy efficiency to get on the radar of contractors and renovators is very, very challenging. In addition, for that reason, we need to get more and more people into this sector, but we're not going to get those people into this sector until we start building demand. Again, chicken and egg problems that's going to be inherent in all of these as these programs get advanced. But really, when it comes down to it, there's a really good opportunity for a job creation opportunity for youth who want to be in particular engaged in the climate champion solutions sector. In addition, there's a lot of opportunities for increasing the diversity within the retrofit contracted world. Right now, it's not terribly diverse, in particular, not when it comes to gender. Yeah, there's a building a pool, and I know, but it was increasing the pool of contractors and renovators. It was a pun. Sorry, it was my little joke. Balance, and it's a really good balance between well-paying jobs, but also not a huge training investment. You can grow an apprenticeship in this sector, and these local jobs can't be outsourced. And in addition, we really kind of also the opportunity for being customer-oriented contractors, which we know can stand some improvements. Right now, in terms of one of the things we're going to be doing, I'll get to that actually. We'll talk about the province and the role that we'll talk when it comes into, if that's okay, Diane. One of the key things that's really important is there's a lot of room for improvement on building science knowledge in the contractor world. We are nowhere close where we need to be as part of this. In addition, we face a challenge here because every contractor I know is already busy doing paid work. You give me a reason when they're flat out doing paid work, you kind of you got to think about it from their perspective. What would be the offering that would really entice me to take away time from paid work to do training for a potential market that will materialize over time? We all know that we really need to have that understanding that helping to build this demand is going to help to build the requirements for building science expertise within the contractor world. In addition, this is where I really think there's some huge opportunities with that turnkey model, because if these programs are serving as a base where you can build this wait list of demand for these energy efficiency retrofits, and then you're going to be able to choose what kind of certifications and training you want the contractors who are delivering for those customers. And you're going to want them to be the best contractors out there with the best building science knowledge. And this is a really good opportunity for the training programs that you want these contractors to do, to make sure that you're bringing to your customer base the building science expertise that's really needed as part of that. And these are some examples of some of the resources that you can do. Absolutely. Thank you, Andy. So I did want to highlight, I know I've been hard on the realtors when they were fighting the energy labeling in the past, and I really do see them as partners and allies in this challenge. First things first, we have a huge challenge ahead of us in terms of advancing LICs and the value proposition for LICs. Because I can assure you at present, if you mention LICs or liens, really, if you mention the liens to realtors or a prospective homeowner or home buyer at this point in time, they only know liens as negative things. They do not know liens as something that improves the building, that homes the building quality, or and they just know it as something that the homeowner did that wasn't supposed to be done, and now is a financial liability. Now, you could call an energy efficiency loan that's attached to the property a liability, in terms of you can, and that that is a kind of have to take on that loan as that transfer. But a local improvement charge is a LIC. So what that could also, but what it really also means is that home is spending less on energy, that is then using those energy savings to pay back the loan to achieve that energy efficiency improvement. The other thing that I think is really powerful in this one, and this is something that comes out a lot in the testimonials of people who have gone through the energy efficiency retrofit program as well, is that they talk about the energy savings before they do the retrofit. But when you're doing the testimonials and hearing back from your customers on this, what they never really speak to the energy savings anymore. It all becomes about how much more comfortable their home is, how much more space they have in their home because they can sit in the chair by the window and not freeze in the winter, and not burn up in the summertime. And they're getting more value, more space out of their home, or more enjoyable spaces or comfortable spaces out of their home. How much quieter it is inside their house with the building envelope improvements. These are things that are real value propositions, but they don't actually get people don't buy into them until they've actually experienced them as part of the retrofit. I don't know how we handle that challenge, but it is something that we need to help kind of identify how we can bring that into program design so that it can really help to drive that value proposition on the part of the homeowners. It does kind of speak to the energy disclosure. I'm not going to deny that the Ontario Home Energy Real Estate, OREA, Ontario Real Estate Association, did have a valid point in concerns that they had with the energy labeling requiring an NRCan audit, and that's slowing down the process of a home sale. No one wants to be slowing down the sale of homes. It really could provide energy disclosure if you don't have the ability to get to a NRCan audit prior to sale. I still think we should need to kind of phase it in. We see the challenges associated with the greener homes and getting pre and post audits, or getting a pre-audit in the case of a home sale. So we don't want to slow down the sale of a property. We can do better to build the capacity within the market over time to help drive this. But in the meantime, we can advance energy disclosure if energy labeling is not possible. Really one of the key things, the realtor concerns, the hurting and benefiting the sales price. There was continued reference to the homeowners, who are not going to be able to sell their property because of low energy efficiency. To me, that's a red herring. People are going to sell their homes in this real estate market, regardless of the energy efficiency, but there is potential for it to affect the price. And that's what we actually kind of want moving forward. But we can't expect people to undertake these energy efficiency programs without giving them supports in the market to be able to do so. So that's one of the key things that I say about the value of these home energy efficiency retrofit programs. I do think we need to improve the value proposition to build the business case for customers to do this. Really one of the key things that I associated with, if we're just going to be using energy cost savings to pay for the long costs, it's going to be challenging to build the deep energy efficiency retrofit value proposition. We really need to reduce costs by mainstreaming the retrofit so it's not one-offs. We got to reduce costs by reducing customer acquisition costs. So that wait list, or that building that demand that then contractors can go in. Often contractors will spend about 20 to 30% of their total costs on just securing that customer base. So there's some opportunities there. Bulk purchasing is another one. I really do think energy use disclosure is going to be helping to build the illiteracy of the population. Energy labeling, no doubt about it, helps with energy, helps with resale value. Carbon price increases is going to help with building that building that value proposition. But I also think we need to bring into the program design ways to blue box energy efficiency. And what I mean by blue boxing is really creating an element, like a lot of energy efficiency doesn't show up on your things. You can't really show it off to the Joneses. How do we actually let others in our community know that we've undertaken the effort to make our home climate champions? Is it going to be a home climate champion plaque label that we do? I think that there's some huge opportunities with that. And I think we've got to use keeping up our tendency in human nature to keep up with the Joneses and use it for good this time rather than often the evil purposes that has been used in the past. We do have to address the rental market. Poor renters, they always get short shift on this one. Huge issues with the split incentive. If the renter is paying for the energy costs, what value is there in the landlord putting that incentive, putting that investment in the property? The energy use disclosure, I think, is huge. Renters need to understand their full cost of that living in that location, and the fact that they don't have to disclose utility costs, I think, is a real shame. This would likely need to be mandated. And I really wanted to kind of do a couple of plugs for this climate change bylaw, which was advanced in the last municipal act, that we haven't put use into it yet, but I really would like to kind of identify, because we are facing an issue in the existing building sector. The limited ability municipalities have to address this sector. I mean, they have a lot more opportunities to address new buildings, but in existing buildings, our site plan controls aren't going to be able to do it. We really need to get additional municipal authorities. And I'm wondering if climate change bylaw the way to go, or is there something else that we got to do? So I did want to highlight rowing together. Like, this is such a monumental it's a monumental beast is really what it is. And we have to hunt as a pack because we are not going to be able to take this down if we don't actually all work together. So yes, they're finally getting some more federal retrofit programs into market. There's some federal model building code and the coming up. The provincial government will need to harmonize with that national model building code. And there's some factors that we need to do. So I'm going to speak only right now first to the Ontario Building Code, which is slated for updating this year. And there is an ERO consultation out on it. It does appear that the province of Ontario is planning on harmonizing with the National Model Building Code, but, and there's a big but on this one. It does appear that they're not using the tiered approach, which is really concerning because what it does is it doesn't identify the direction that the market is going to need to go to and the time frame that they're going to have to go to. In addition, it can undermine the ability of municipalities to serve as market transformation hubs for those higher tiers in order to make it so that they can test out the market and build capacity in the market at a much smaller geographical range than the province would have to do to make it as part of the Ontario Building Code. The two can really work well together. But I think we're going to have some challenges on our hands, and we're going to have to work collectively to ensure that we can work with the Ontario Building Code to enable it to be as powerful as it can for driving us towards net zero emission buildings. In addition, the provincial building code only takes energy as a metric, not GHGs. So really bringing GHGs into that energy, into that Ontario building code and getting the tiers identified will really help to identify for the market where we're going and the time frame for when we're going at it. The feds are advancing a model retrofit code. Again, this would need to be adopted by a province in order to probably enable municipalities to act on that retrofit code. In addition, one of the key things that we're really challenging on this one is that we need to identify how that can be implemented at the municipal level. Like, what if the province doesn't adopt the retrofit code? Then what powers is there for a municipality to adopt a retrofit code within their jurisdiction? And we really need to improve municipal authorities to enable them to do that. Another key area for the for the feds and for the province, I mean, the federal government has made a commitment to stop subsidizing fossil fuels. And we've got to hold their feet to the fire on that one. But in addition, we also have to get the provincial government to stop subsidizing fossil fuels. And largely they're subsidizing fossil fuels in a couple of different ways. One way that they're subsidizing fossil fuels is by the rate base paying for natural gas expansion of the pipeline as part of the overall rate base and paying for that to the tune of about $26K on average. $26K per customer hookup for that access to that pipeline. That's going to take decades for that investment to pay back. So that is a fossil fuel subsidy. In addition, there's no charges on right of way for natural gas infrastructure in our communities. And that's another fossil fuel subsidy as well. So there's some key areas that we need to do. But really what we need to do is have province and municipalities working together to enable municipalities to have the authorities that they need to have so that they can be the climate champions that they need to be. Didn't want to highlight, we're going to go into this discussion on this one. Honestly, I know it is daunting as all hell on this one, and it's scary, but it's also exciting, and it's a huge opportunity. And honestly, future generations, I'm sure, will look back on us and say, what the hell took you so long? But this will be probably one of the biggest climate champion efforts that we all can be involved in, and that the average individual can be involved in. And I think that makes it super powerful. But we can't leave individuals to figure this all out on their own. We got to help them, and we got to create these programs that can help them to do that. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I am going to go into the questions and discussion. And I also wanted to, get the gaps in the market. So I'm just hunting that down. So I'm going to present this. Oh, crap. So if you can also go, feel free to unmute and just chime in. That would be fantastic. But if not, you can also, I'm going to just copy the link and throw it into the chat so everyone has it. You can just go to this URL, or you can go to w.menti.com. You can use the code 22261786, and you can just provide some additional input for some gaps that you notice, issues, questions, and priorities as you see them. So just in the meantime, I'm going to go through some of the questions. I know a lot of folks are kind of identifying in terms of who are their local partners, and thank you, Eric, for putting some of the kind of local partners. I think this is a huge opportunity. In many ways, what you want to do is kind of do an asset plan, an asset management of identifying who are the community partners who can help you. And I did want to, oh, I'm so glad you beat the seed funded to kickstart efforts. That is one of the huge components, values of the FCM Community Efficiency Financing Program. In addition to the financing, which the capital is absolutely important, what is most important about that program stream, is it does provide grants to help with all those kind of initial infrastructure foundational pieces that just you can't do on the property tax base. Like, we can't expect the property tax base to develop and implement these programs. We got to have some other source of funding. And I think the up to 50% of the FCM CEF grants is available as grant, or FCM program is available as grants to help pay for those infrastructure costs for that first number of years, to build the foundation so that your program is set up for future years to be able to reach scale up. You can't reach scale up on an Excel spreadsheet that is a lot of times used at the initial staging of these programs. That's the really important part of the FCM CEF funds, to help with those startup costs, to build a really solid foundation for these programs so that they can move, so that they can actually achieve scale up once the ecosystem is conducive for it. Because right now, I can assure you, the market, the ecosystem is not conducive for scale up at present, but that's okay because we can get there. I also think one of the key important things on this one, the municipal programs and being able to attach it to property, I think is really, really critical for helping to address low income sector and the low income sector and those experiencing energy poverty. If we can't find a really secure way to attach it to the property to reduce the risk, thereby reducing the interest rate, even if it is just the CMHC, then we are going to make it hard to not place an additional financial burden on folks who really shouldn't be having additional financial burdens placed on them. We want to try and reach that target audience with a switch, so that in technicality, it's kind of a free retrofit because the energy savings are paying back the loan. But in order for that to happen, it needs to be a long-term payback. It needs to be a low interest rate, and that will help to build that switch from paying for the energy to repaying the loan. And yes, I think that there will be some improvements. Right now, I think there is a very different market at present on those contractors who are serving the new build sector and those who are serving the existing building sector. There's quite a big differentiation between those contractors. And in many ways, the Ontario Building Code will be very important because it brings those contractors who are working in the new build sector up on their energy efficiency. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it pulls right into it on its own, will pull into the existing building sector. There needs to be some insurance that the existing buildings, the contractors who are working in that sector, who are very, very decentralized, are also being moved in the direction of receiving the building science expertise that they need to do. Thank you for putting all of those, that link in, Andy, I appreciate it. And community partners. So that's one of the areas, those third-party supports. AMO's LAS stream is working to kind of advance a third-party retrofit program for municipalities. And they've done it with LED street lighting. And it's of particular importance to those smaller municipalities who these programs are really, really daunting and unlikely to be able to be implemented based on existing supports, even with grants to help set up those program costs. All right. Any other kind of comments that folks want to do?
And Gabby, not with
Yeah.
only, sorry to chime in, but not only with street lighting. The street lighting is almost exhausted with a retired art program. We had over 200 municipalities that participated. So, but the current program that we're doing is working on the interior and exterior lights with municipal facilities such as community centers, town halls, arenas, swimming pool, long-term care, just name them. Any municipal facility that has an old type of light, you know, we have this facility lighting program that works with them as a community partner, you know, to be energy efficient, reduce GHG, and at the same time save money. So it's a threefold thing, but it makes the work much easier for our partners, as municipalities, and of course the broader public sector when they participate in it. And there's a website link that I've put there. So anyone on this Zoom that's interested to know more, it's purely non-for-profit, turnkey, but our goal is to reduce carbon footprint of organizations. So you can check it out.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Christian. I really appreciate that.
Welcome.
And then one of the other kind of the key areas, and keep in mind, while, you know, we AMO and CAP are working with a group, a cohort of 7 to get them to do the feasibility and market analysis, as well as the design to get them ready to go ahead with an FCN capital and grants program. We really want to help other municipalities as they're making through this program. We recognize how daunting and challenging this sector is, and we don't need to be kind of recreating the wheel over and over again. So please, whatever you decide to do, don't care what kind of third-party model or what you're thinking, please feel free to reach out. And AMO is Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and a local, I can't remember what LAS stands for. So
Local Authority Services.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So there's definitely some key challenges on this one. We're going to kind of pulling out a whole bunch of kind of identifying some additional gaps. Also going to be going back to the retrofit training network to kind of like identify what additional kind of things are taking place, because as we said, it's an all hands on deck sort of effort. So we're going to be pulling together, updating the gap analysis, identifying all the difference. I started it with a little bit here, but there's still more work to do to bring in all of the different efforts taking place across all the different players in this market. So if you don't mind identifying just how useful you found this webinar, and don't be shy, just be totally brutally honest on this one. Really, in the whole scheme of things, what we're trying to do is help kind of identify what are the most important topics that are really interesting to, or most useful and most value to your municipal network, and how we share around this collective effort. Because I know that I've felt these moments of sheer anxiety, if not outright panic, to try and understand how we enable the retrofit market to scale up and be the climate champions that we need them to be, because it is so daunting and there's just so much work, but what a time to be alive. Like, it's a really important effort. And what's really exciting about it is it's one of those classic win-win-win-win that we keep talking about in the climate field. Economic development pillars, job creation pillars, opportunities to improve diversity, opportunities to reach target markets, which, let's face it, many lower income folks have been totally missed out in all the energy efficiency retrofit programs thus far, unless it was a specific program to the low income community, in which case those are really helpful. But a lot of the rebates and incentives have not been available to those lower income streams because of the upfront capital barrier, and how you need to fork out all this money in order and wait until you get your rebate back. So it means that a lot of the lower income folks have not been able to engage in the energy efficiency sector. And these programs can help address that. All right, Perfect. All right, so I'm going to stop this now, and I'm going to thank everyone. I really appreciate the time time that was provided for this to join this webinar. Really appreciate your interest in this, and please don't be shy about giving us feedback in terms of some other topics or the next conversation. This is, as I said, this is an ongoing challenge, and I see the next 5 years as just building that foundational pieces and gaining a lot of insights from our local market on what really is going to get uptake on these programs, what is going to actually get for the best customer experience possible. Because if we don't make the best customer experience possible, then we've really missed out on a lot of opportunities, and making this geared towards customers. And then eventually the most important question, ultimately, actually not the most, I'm going to say a very important question too, is still how do we make these programs get to the deeper reductions, which we know is a challenge, and how do we build the value proposition for fuel switching? So those are some of the key things on this one. I really want to thank the Retrofit Training Network for helping to kind of pull these ideas together. In addition, helping to kind of draw a roadmap for the pathway and how each of us can join this pathway from different places that we are at. And I hope everyone has a great day. And I will be sending out the PDFs of this presentation, as well as the recording link. Please feel free to share it with anyone in your municipality or community who you think might be interested or should be interested in this. And if you have any topics that you'd like to kind of dig into more detail in this ecosystem, retrofit ecosystem, please let me know, and we will get that on the table. And I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks, everyone.